I call you Pastor Sunshine. We've been friends now for probably a little more than a decade, and our relationship has just continued to grow, be changed, and transformed. And so I just want to take a moment and introduce you. This is my friend. His name is Pastor Ira Angustain. He has a lovely bride by the name of Miss Linda. I learned to call her Miss Lynn, and then I found out a secret that she didn't like that. And she's like, Prophet, my husband calls me that, but please don't call me that. And so there's times where I'm like, hi, Miss Linda. So anyways, it's a privilege to have you coming on and being a part, sharing your story. But let's just jump right into, what you were talking about. You were just talking about, you just finished coaching your first season back in many years. You're a basketball enthusiast. I've known this for many years. And tell me, how did you get back into coaching?
So this is a really wild story. So I decided I wanted to do something with basketball. My daughter's playing basketball. She graduated high school playing basketball, and she was the MVP of their team. And she, made the All-Stars, though she went to junior college to play basketball. And so I love basketball, and I decided I wanted to do something. Linda goes, why don't you do something you want to do? All right, you have some time, why don't you do it? So I said, you know what, I'm going to ref. Because I used to watch the games, and the referees didn't care. Like, these girls spend a lot of hours trying to be good basketball players. And when I was watching them, it bothered me that the refs, they wouldn't run all the way down court, and they wouldn't call, they wouldn't get in position. So I said, it's bothering me, I'm going to do that. So I went, joined, was going to become a ref, went to a little referee camp, and then joined an organization so I could become a ref.
So you're right there, you're just saying, I saw a place where there was a need to better these young ladies, but the only way to better these young athletes is to be a legitimate ref. There's so many people that like to do things halfway. I am so grateful that you're not a man that wants to do it halfway. If you see a cause and a purpose, you're going to jump in.
Absolutely.
And so as you're jumping in, how did this evolve?
So I'm going, learning, and going, man, there's some stuff I didn't know. And I thought I knew a lot about basketball, and there's some things that I didn't know and how they operate. And then I learned, and I thought, this is really good. Well, we are at a basketball game. Zoe's All-Star game, I think it was. And her coach was sitting with us. She was talking about how her frosh-off coach wasn't going to be doing it anymore, and that she was going to have to find another coach. And my wife said, oh my gosh. She said, why don't you get him? Pointing to me. He'll do it. And then the coach said, would you want to coach? And I didn't hear what they were talking about. I was watching, and she said, I said, what? She said, do you want to coach? Your wife said you'd like to coach Frosh Soft. And I said, is there an opening or something? She goes, yeah. And Linda goes, yeah, you'd love to coach. You'd be great at it. So I said, okay, yeah, I'd like to do that, right? So my wife volunteered me. And then I went through the process. And
prophetic people, they just interrupt and interject, and they're like, this is a God idea. Jump right in.
And it turned out great. I mean, I volunteered. And so for a few months, I was working with the varsity and JVs until the school year came around. Then I was going to become the full-time frosh-off coach. And it was so much fun. I enjoyed, as a volunteer, doing what I was doing. Now I was taking a second job, and doing it, and it was so much fun. And so I said, I need an assistant. My daughter wants to end up coaching at some point. So I said, let me ask her. I said, she goes, yeah, I want to coach. I said, okay, you can be my assistant. So I had her come and help me, and it's been really a lot of fun. And during the games, I said, you know what, take over, do what you need to do. And she takes over, starts running the plays, start calling out our defense, everything. And so she really enjoyed it, and I watched her flourish in it. And I know that's something she wants to do eventually, and I think she'll be great at it, and she loved it.
Well, let's just take a few moments. You started by talking about how you took these girls who were raw, young, maybe not trained, but had skill. You saw potential in them, and you helped transform them. You talked to me moments before we went, to this conversation. You're saying how you played a good team, and they kind of blew you out. But at the end of the year, What happened?
Yeah, so our very first scrimmage, we had one practice, then we had a scrimmage, right? So I had girls that never...
That doesn't sound good.
They never dribbled a basketball before, never shot before, but they wanted to play. And so for some reason, it was scheduled that we had practice and a game. So we lost to this team by 40 points. And so we play them now at the end of the year, our very last game, and they beat us by 2, which we should have won, but we didn't. But we had an opportunity to win the game, and we didn't do it. But it's a big jump, 38-point difference, pretty huge.
Huge. How would you liken that unto maybe a journey in a believer's life, coming out of the world, coming into the kingdom? I'm sure you're able to draw a lot of parallels through coaching basketball and, your love for the game, your love for Christ. Maybe share a simple principle or a simple thought that you might have learned while coaching on how it relates.
Well, first, when you first get saved, you really don't know anything, right? You just know God loves you, and you have this overwhelming urge that you just want to be a Christian. You want to be like God, and you love Him. That's the only thing you know. You don't really know any principles. You really don't know any Bible verses or anything. Well, you start off one way, but if you are diligent and you jump into the Word, you grow, and you get better at what your understanding is. How the Bible works, how God works, hearing God's voice, flowing in the Spirit. It all takes a process of growing. And when you have a good mentor to teach you that, it accelerates the growth, right? And same thing in coaching. If you're a good coach, you can accelerate people's growth. If you're not a good coach, then the girls aren't going to grow. They're not going to do anything. And I'm not saying I'm a great coach or anything by any stretch of the imagination, but my girls grew. They went from not being able to dribble a basketball and getting beat by 40 to should have won.
Competing.
Yeah, competing and getting so much better where they can dribble, they can shoot, they could score. So I'm excited about that. But I think as a Christian, when you don't know much, there's an advantage because you get saved, you're saved. You're not losing. You're not losing anymore, right? And then you just grow into your victory. And the more you know, and the greater you grow, things start falling off, start going away. The things that once mattered a lot to you don't matter anymore. The only thing that matters is just keep pressing forward and expressing God's love to others, His grace, His mercy. Because when you don't know who you are, then you give everybody who you are. But once you understand who you are and who you are in God, you start giving them God.
100%. I'm so grateful because I recognize when somebody goes all in, like a coach, what do? They help formulate and pull out the destiny that's in you. Training, equipping, speaking into you, encouragement, sometimes a little bit of tough love because you see so much more in them. And absolutely. I have been so thankful for having mentors and people in my life that have been able to just kind of love me through my sticking points because they saw something more in me. You and I have been friends for probably about 10 to 12 years, right in that area. I believe we met right around 2013, 2014, probably 2014, I believe it was. I remember meeting you, and it wasn't even that you came to a meeting to see me. You came to see another prophetic voice. But that day, God did something very unique. He tied us together.
Absolutely.
Do you remember that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I was home because it was Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, and a friend of ours was going to be ministering. And again, my wife, she's really good at this, said, hey, you know what? We need to go see Prophet Daniel. We need to go see him and hear him. He's speaking at this place in Orange, I believe it was. And so me, my wife, and my daughter went to go see him. But we walk in the room and you're ministering. We had gotten there, I don't know, a little bit after it had started, because we decided at the last minute this is what we're going to do. We sat down, and I don't even think it was 5 minutes that we were down that you called my daughter out, and then you told us, come down with her. And so we all came down, and you began to minister to her, and then you proceeded to give us about a 30-minute prophetic word. 30-minute prophetic word that was mind-blowing and very accurate. And we were thinking while you're giving we got to know this guy. I gotta know who this guy is. And so afterwards, when it was all said and done, I said, you need to come to my church. But we hooked up on the phone, and it so happened the days that we wanted to have you, somebody had just canceled.
I remember that. I absolutely remember that. And you're like, I said, it's just like moments before you called, someone had just called and canceled. And for me, that's pretty rare. I'll have maybe 2 cancellations a year. And that was one of the 2. And honestly, I could say this from the bottom of my heart. In that year, 2014, I was coming out of some of the greatest crisis of my life, some of the most difficult things that minister could go through, and God was doing a lot in my life, my wife's life, our ministry's life. And I think I called you Pastor Sunshine was because you always had laughter in your heart. You always had smile on your face, and you love and have a gift to make people laugh. And so I think in that season, laughter is medicine to the soul, and you were a lot of laughter to me in that season. And I think that's when I just started calling you Pastor Sunshine. So for those people wondering, why does he call him Pastor Sunshine? It actually says that in my phone. And it's so funny. I can say, call Pastor so-and-so, and it'll automatically call you. And I was like, man, my Siri doesn't understand. I'm trying to call somebody else. And then I'll just have to leave you a message, and I often sing to you.
Yeah, you sing to me.
And I'm just so thankful. Thank you for being a part of my life. You and Pastor Linda have been a major blessing. Zoe,
That's funny. We have daughters named the same name.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I am also thankful. Most people don't know this, but the Source School of Ministry, the Source School of Prophecy, all of this birthed after we had a meeting. We were supposed to do a day, I think.
Yeah, no, we're doing a morning and an evening, and then we end up 11 or 12 days going straight through the.
Or a little revival broke out.
It was so powerful.
Man, I remember that whole room was filled to capacity. People were coming.
We had people in the hallways. I mean, people with seats in the hallways.
Man, and then sometime after that, you were having your training for reigning School of Ministry, and you asked me to come and teach them. And then you invited, I don't know if other people came, and you asked me to teach. Do you remember what happened that day?
So when we were having you were gonna preach on a Sunday, and we had a school ministry on a Monday. It's a Monday night, and so I wanted you to come and teach and speak to them and teach them about the prophetic, and you did an amazing job. And we started talking. It was afterwards. We sat down and started talking. I don't know if we went to go eat or we just went downstairs and started talking. And you said this thing. You're driving home, right? You started driving home, and you called me. You called. It was like 2 a.m. or something, driving home, and you called me and said, "Man, I have this thing I want to do." I was being in that class. Something happened. I don't remember if you remember how it went, but it was I want to do something. Me and Pastor Linda were on the phone, and you said, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to have a class, and I'm going to teach the prophetic. And you started going through this whole thing, and then we said, if you're going to do that, if you're going to do it in Southern California, do it at our place. I said, we won't charge you a penny. Just come and do what you need to do and teach the people.
And that was the birth of our Source School of Prophecy. Right there in Southern California, you asked me to teach your leaders in training and your School of Ministry. And before we knew it, we were traveling once a month from Northern California to Southern California. And we did it for 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't know how many staff members we went through, but we covered a lot of people because the grind, the push, to get there, and I think the only one that's still with me, and you'd be so amazed, is the young lady, Kat. Kat is still with our ministry team. She journeyed through all of that. This young lady's amazing, but she was probably back then a little rough, but now she's refined, she's grown, she's so mature, and, these are all the things that we've seen together take place, and so thank you.
Yeah, I remember you guys used to pull up in a van and in another car, and people would come out, all this equipment, all this stuff would come out. It was.
We still do it today. It's just getting bigger and bigger, and God's opening doors. But thank you. Here we are now on our third year, and SOAR is no longer, me going from city to city. We got to a place where we're traveling to 4 different cities a month, doing the same thing, teaching level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Or 1, 2, and 3, and then we would teach another level 1 class because it was just sprouting. Then COVID hit and everything shifted. Now it's online, but now we're reaching students around the world. But it all started right there in Orange County, right there at your church.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I just enjoyed watching it just transpire and what it has become. And literally, what's going to happen. But our philosophy is we had a church. We were paying for it. I mean, we weren't struggling or anything like that. And we wanted to be a blessing. We had ministries come in. We said, hey, do your thing here. We won't charge you. That's just, and I think that's the way the kingdom should operate, right? If you can take care of something and help somebody else, do it, right? That's supposed to be God's house. Let's just do it.
Well, we're supposed to work together, one with another. We're all together lovely. When we begin to function and flow working together, it begins to change things.
Absolutely.
And so thank you, because you've helped us as a ministry grow. You provided the first platform for us to step out and into, and then I realized this is a passion. And, for years, we have done this. We're raising up, I don't know how many hundreds of people that we have poured into prophetically that are raising up with a word in their mouth. And it's just amazing to see because of that opportunity. I'll share this. In our last prophetic encounters, we had, I believe, like 18 students from around the U.S. They all came, and 12 of them helped me prophesy to 200 people on a Saturday morning in 90 minutes.
Wow.
And that was just an amazing move of God. But to see that in which you're teaching begin to be activated like a coach, pulling on them, and seeing them step out and minister and not be afraid. In that conference, we had Chris Garcia, Troy Black, who are 2 tremendous young prophetic voices, young just in age compared to me. And so, but they carry, a great glory, but yet these students were one after another just stepping into it and sharing the word of the Lord. But that is all the fruit from you just creating an atmosphere and an opportunity. So from the bottom of my heart, I'm super grateful about that, because now as I look back some 8-9 years later, we're seeing a world influenced by what God's doing through LIVG Ministries, And so what I want to do is, let's just talk a little bit about your story, Well,
before you go there, I just want to say thank you to you. Not everybody has access and a friendship like we have. And so it's not a one-way street. Yeah. I'm not just giving to you. But you have given to us so much. Coming and always making yourself available to us has been tremendous. A lot of times between me and you, I know somebody needs to hear from God, and who's the first person I call is you. Linda goes, let's call Prophet. And no matter where we're at, no matter what's happening, no matter what you're doing, you drop what you're doing, and then you give us some great insight. And I'm very appreciative of that. And thank you. And, Miss Juanita for doing, in fact, we're having Miss Juanita at our church. She's going to be doing our women's meeting that we're having in, I think, May or June. And she's going to be one of our speakers. So we're excited about having her.
She's really excited, and so, thank you. I'm honored to be a part of your guys' life for as many years, part of the fellowship, part of the church. When I go into the Orange County area, your family. And so whenever we can, it's always great to do breakfast, especially at one of my favorite places that you took me to, which is Corner Bakery. I love that spot. Their breakfast is amazing. And anyways, one of the things is people don't know a little bit about you. Tell me about being a teenage idol.
Wow.
Take you way back.
Well, so back in 1979, 80, 81, there was a TV show called The White Shadow, and I played Gomez on that show. I was an actor. I grew up in the industry.
How did that happen?
So my sisters were, it's kind of nepotism. My sisters were in it first. My mom had a connection with somebody who was in the industry who helped get my sisters in it. And through that connection, got me in it. And one of the very first things I ever did was a show called Pete and Gladys. I was 3 years old. And it was Carol Williams and Harry Morgan. Harry Morgan was on MASH. But this is way back in the day. And that's the very first time I ever was on a show. And then
you were 3 years old?
I was 3 years old.
Wow.
I ended up on a show called.
You must have been a cute baby.
Oh, I was adorable. And then I was doing things here and there. I was a orphan kid on Flying Nun, and with Sally Fields.
Sally Fields.
Yeah, and there was a show called Dan August. I don't know if you remember that, but a very famous person was the star of that show who was well known now, but I don't know how well he was known back then. But Burt Reynolds, it was his show, and I had a guest spot on that. And I enjoyed it. He was really a nice man, just really a really nice guy. And then I did a lot of other things. But in '79, I got the role of Gomez on The White Shadow, and then got on these teen magazines, Tiger Beat, Teen Beat, those type of things. And little did I know, my wife had a poster of me in her room. All right, so she has this poster, and years after that, I met her. We fell in love, and I married her. And so it was really funny because she had this poster of me in a room. And when I went to go pick her up, you want to talk about prophetic? Her mom would see her when she was dating people, and she would tell them, "Don't date that guy. He's not it. Don't date that guy." First time I go get her and pick her up, I'm getting out of the car. Her mom's standing at the window, just sees the back of me, doesn't see anything else, just the back of me. And she tells my wife, "That's your husband. You're going to marry him."
Wow. Pause right there. I'll never forget. Me and Juanita are driving to Merced, California for the first time. We're going on going on a date. She was inviting me to LA, couldn't go. And so I invited her to the lovely town of Modesto because I had an opportunity to preach for my father. And a very special day, I said, "Hey, I can't go to LA, but if you want, you could come to Modesto. My parents live in a small city called Ceres. I'm going to minister. You can sing, and afterwards we can go to the movies, we can go out." And so, and she said, we talked to her parents, got permission, we went. And the first time I'm introducing Juanita to my mom, and my family, when my mom is looking at the window, and as I'm bringing her in, my mom, it never does this. She grabs me by the hand, takes me into the room, and she said, "This young lady's going to be your wife. Whatever you do, don't mess this up." And so my mom is prophesying like, this is the Lord's doing. She saw it. She believed in it, took me to the room, told me not to blow it. And I'm like, oh my God, and needless to say, mine and Juanita's first date, it was us ministering together.
Wow.
But in the same manner isn't it amazing how moms have this, what the world calls intuition, for men, they call it a gut feeling. For Christians, they use terms like you just know when you're knower.
Yeah.
And we have all these strange terms for one understanding. It's prophetic. Your mom, your mother-in-law, she had it for her daughter.
And her mom was very prophetic.
So is Pastor Linda. My goodness. I mean, she's definitely an intercessor you want on your team.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I tell people all the time, I said, when people start to pray, they kind of warm up to it. That's not my wife. She's like going 100 miles an hour just right off the bat.
So you're walking in, your mother-in-law to be sees you, and
she told right away, she goes, "That's your husband." She just saw the back of my head and said, "That's your husband." And the rest is history. When people ask us how I met, I always tell them it was 1-800-BABE. That's how we met.
1-800-BABE. So is it true that she used to have your magazine and she had your poster on the wall?
Yep.
She shared with me one time that she would look up and say, "I'm going to marry this man one day."
Now, the funny thing is when we first got married, it was funny. I would be asleep and she'd be looking at me like that. And I wake up and she goes, I'm just making sure it's you. She goes, I can't believe this has happened.
So how did you guys even meet?
So I wasn't saved. So I was 100% heathen. And
Praise the Lord. We were all there.
And she was backslidden. And so we met at a nightclub. And
God works in mysterious ways.
So it was the Black Angus. And then like after 8 or 9 o'clock, they'd open it up and it'd be not only just a bar, but it'd be a nightclub. So I used to go there, and I had a friend of mine, Richard. He was with me. He's my wingman. And it was funny because I saw her and I thought, how am I going to meet her? I don't want to just go to somebody, hey, how are you, that type of thing. So I knew the DJ and she knew the DJ. So she would go up and work around him. She was with the girlfriend. And so I had a piece of paper, right? And I drew this Mickey Mouse. And so I just said to them, I said, hey, what grade would you give it? So her friend goes, oh, I give it an A. And I go, all right. So I asked her, how about you? And she looked at it, she goes, oh, I give it a D, right? And she walked away. I went, wait a minute, come back here. And so that's how it all started. We just started talking. And
she gave you a bad grade.
Yeah, she gave me a bad grade. And
she probably did it on purpose.
Yeah, so I had to go fix it. I had to go fix my grade like I did in high school and junior high school and elementary school.
So are you telling me that you didn't love school?
No, I did. Elementary school I liked. Junior high school I hated. I grew up in East LA and I went to Belvedere. And the thing about that, though, was there was a lot of gangs. And we had shootouts in school. We had stabbings in school. Kids brought guns. I know junior high school, they brought guns to school. The teachers were intimidated. It was just a bad scene, so I hated it. My first 2 years, there were nightmares. I hated going to school. Our senior year, most of us that were 7th graders coming up, and when I went to school, it was 7th, 8th, and 9th was junior high school. And we were all athletes, so when we became 9th graders, we took over the school because most of us were athletes. And so then I liked that. Then I went to high school, which I enjoyed. But I think school wasn't my favorite thing to do.
So kind of going back, you were an athlete. You're also growing up in Hollywood. How old were you when The White Shadow broke out? And then what was your experience in Hollywood?
So this was wild because I was, let's see, when The White Shadow, I was 19. I was 19 years old when I got on The White Shadow. It was ironic because my father, he said that, this is what at least he told me, he said, I always told God, for some reason, I don't know why he would say this to me, but he said, I always said, I felt like I was supposed to die earlier. This is my dad told me. He goes, but I didn't. I told God, please don't let me die until I can see my son can take care of himself. And that was really wild, right? And so I got the job. We filmed it. The week we finished filming, my father passed away. I thought that was really crazy. And it was funny because I remember a friend of mine said, I'm going to come over to your house. It was the day my father passed away. It was early in the morning. He goes, I'm going to come over. I'm going to come over early. To him, it was like 8 or 9 o'clock. I'll pick you up. We'll go play basketball or something. I forgot what we were going to do. Well, it was about 5:30 in the morning. My dad used to go to work at 4:30 in the morning. My dad was he worked for the city of LA, and he passed the test to be a tree surgeon, but he was a gardener for the city of LA. My dad only went to first grade. My mom made him take a test to get upgraded to a tree surgeon. My dad could barely read. But my mom worked with him, and my dad passed the test to become a tree surgeon. Very first day he goes to work as a tree surgeon, he got this big promotion, big raise and everything. They put him on one of those big boom things to go inspect this tree while the wind's blowing a lot and the little things going back and forth like this. My dad goes, I can't handle this. I'm not going to die this way. So he gave back the job. They took him back where he was. But anyway, so he's at work, and I'm asleep. And I hear steps coming up because we lived where a place you had to walk up steps to get to our front door. And I'm going, oh my gosh. I said, my mom's going to kill me. He's come. I look at the clock, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. What's he doing here? My friend David, I'm thinking, what are you doing here? And my mom gets up, opens the door. And so I'm sitting up in my bed because I figured my mom's going to open the door. She's going to yell at me saying, what the heck is your friend doing here so early, right? My mom opens the door, and to my sister's thing, she says something to my sister, opens the other door, says something to my other sister, comes to my room, opens the door, and she just said, your dad's dead. I'm like, what? And she walked away. And my mom was very stoic and when she said it. So I get up, I run to the front room and say, who is here? So it's my dad's boss. And he had my dad's glasses in his hands. And he was holding them. And I remember going, what happened? He goes, your dad would run every morning, because my dad was a boxer, professional boxer back in the day, but he would run every morning at work before they started. And so while he was running, he had collapsed. And so I asked him, I said, is my dad dead? He said, no, they were taking him in the ambulance, not that I know of. But something didn't sit right with me. And my mom came on and said, I don't care what he says, your dad's dead. I know he's dead. Like that, and let's go. So we got dressed real fast and took off to the hospital. And then I remember my mom holding my dad's glasses. We get to the hospital, and they told us my father had passed away. And so that was kind of a shock. Like all of a sudden, and I tell people this, not being a Christian at that time, I could feel the covering of my father over us lift. I know that sounds really weird, but it just kind of lifted. I knew it, and I felt open. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had no covering. I didn't know what that was, didn't have understanding of what it was till I became a Christian. And I thought, like, this is really strange. And so my father had passed away, and I remember it really messed me up for a few months. We had just finished shooting the show, and I was thinking, what's going to happen? I didn't even think about the show anymore. So I got a call about a month or two later saying, hey, we got picked up for 12 shows. And so I go, oh, wow, we're going to work. I'm going to have 12 weeks of work, right, in a TV show. So I was excited. And my father, it rang in my head what he had said. And I guess I could take care of myself, right? And then we started to shoot the show. And I knew our show was different because we were hitting subjects that were not hit by any other TV show before. We were a forerunner to a lot of things. So we were kind of new in how we presented our shows. We dealt with alcoholism, drugs. We dealt with homosexuality. We dealt with everything on that show, which nobody ever touched before. And then they ordered some more shows. So we ended up doing like 20 shows that year, the first year. And it started to grow in popularity. They put us in a slot where we thought that they were trying to bury us because we went up against Happy Days. At that time, Happy Days was the #1 show. And we were on a Monday night, and we were building up an audience. So as we built to the audience, they moved us to a Tuesday. And then from a Tuesday, moved us to a Thursday. And
so as they're changing your days, these are actual promotions and growing into in like more difficult slots.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is, because we were running against Happy Days, they were the #1 show. So we had to build an audience. So we start finally building an audience. We start moving the needle. Then they moved us. When they moved us, now the audience has to find you again. And then they moved us another time. Finally, it just settled on, you know what? Let's just go put us back on Mondays. So we went all the way back to Mondays, and then we started really building an audience. We had the Harlem Globetrotters on the show. And when the whole Harlem Globetrotters came on our show, it bolted us in the top 10. For the first time, we went in the top 10. And from that point forward, the show was doing really good. It was almost like a cult, so to speak. We had like a cult following of young high school kids. I used to get letters a lot from high school basketball teams, and most of them were girl basketball teams. And so on the show, I used to roll up my shorts when we used to practice. I don't know why I did it. I just did roll them up. And so girls basketball teams would send me pictures of their team with their shorts rolled up because I did. I thought that was really weird, right? I thought, like, not ever experienced anything like that, right? I thought, wow, this is really crazy. And so then I started doing celebrity events, got to go places, and I got invited to go to a tennis, golf celebrity thing in Portland, Oregon. And this is a funny story. So now I'm in Tiger Beat, Teen Beat, all those shows. And I'm going to the airport to get on a plane to go to Portland, Oregon to the celebrity event. While I'm there, I'm walking. And back then, we didn't have TSA or anything like that. You could walk all the way to the gate. So I walked in, and there was these two girls standing with their back to me, but I could see the magazine they were holding. When I walked through and I looked over, and it was a magazine on Tiger Beat that I was on the cover of. They had a story on me in the middle. So I looked over, I go, I wonder what they're reading. So I go over, and it's the story of me, about me. So they're both standing with their back to me as I'm walking in, reading the story about me. And I thought, oh, wow, okay. So I walk over, and I peek over, and I said, oh, you like that guy? No, you don't like that guy. And then they turn around, and the girl goes, you know what? And she was going to, I guess, say something bad to me. She looked around, she goes, oh my gosh, she screamed. While she screams really loud, here comes Tia. The security comes running out. Her mom comes over to me, and she goes, oh my gosh. Her mom hugs me, says, oh my gosh, I'm so glad. She goes, my daughter loves you. So I signed their autographs to them and talked to them for a little bit. But that, to me, was one of the first experience I had of knowing people recognized you, coming out of that. And then from that moment forward, it just kind of changed my life there, because you go places and people know you. You have to be on, alert that what's going on. I took my mom to Alvera Street one day. She wanted to go. We used to go to this place to have tacos, and I hadn't been there. Well, I took her there.
Alvera Street? It's infamous. Everybody knows that place. I've been there from Northern California.
Yeah, so I took my mom. We went there. So I'm sitting down. We ordered tacos. And I'm not kidding you. This really blew my mind. I'm sitting there, we're waiting for our food. Normally they take about 5 minutes, and they just bring you food right away. So I'm sitting down. Somebody recognizes me. In 5 minutes, by the time we ordered the food to get it, there was like 100 people out there. So the cops had to come, tell me to leave. Said, hey, you're creating havoc here, nothing personal. And I said, no, I really liked it. I thought that was really cool that all these people came out to get your autograph and wanted to touch you and the whole thing. And I thought, wow, this is really wild.
So that's Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's the life. And you're not saved at this moment.
I'm not saved, but it was an exciting time for me. And I loved working with the guys. We're working together and doing things. And then I don't know if you know who Freddie Prinze was, but Freddie Prinze was a big-time comedian. They had my father, ironically, before he passed away, told me, one day you're going to play Freddie Prinze, right? And in doing that, I thought, wow, because he had just passed away. Freddie Prinze had just passed away, and I remember my dad telling me, you're going to do his life story, just like when my dad was alive. So he passes away. A couple years later, they're doing a movie on his life story, right? They interview thousands of people. I'm trying to get in to read for the part. They won't see me because I'm on a TV show and we're filming. So they go and they won't see me because they wanted to shoot right away, and I was working, so I couldn't do it. But they couldn't find anybody. So I'm on the last 2 weeks of our show before we shut down. And they said, okay, we'll see him. So they brought me in. So it happened so quick. I read, they liked it. They had me come back, screen test. I went screen tested, came back, met all the people I needed to meet. Finished our second to last show. We started shooting the last show. They called me and said, okay, we're going to start filming in New York in 2 weeks. Once you're done, get everything ready because we need to start right away. So I finished shooting The White Shadow, got my script, memorized everything in there. This is really crazy. Memorized everything in there. We fly out to New York. We went from New York to Las Vegas, back to LA, and it was just like a whirlwind of things that happened so quickly.
So what is it like trying to memorize a script? I mean, Memorizing scripture for most people is difficult. Trying to memorize a whole script, that must be pretty taxing.
Yeah, it was when something written really well, it's pretty easy. When it is not written well, it's difficult. But when it flows, it's pretty easy. And Darlene Young was the writer, I believe her name was, of that show. And so it was pretty easy. I got it and memorized everything. And it was funny because we had to go to Washington Heights, where Freddie Prinze was raised. And if you ever been to New York and you ever been to Washington Heights, it's kind of like a, what do you call it? A time warp. Like people aren't where things are happening now. They're not aware of some of the stuff's happening. So I'm there. This guy comes up to me. I'm walking. He goes, Freddie. I'm turning around and listen. He goes, oh my, don't you remember me? And I'm going, what? And he goes, Freddie, we would hang out when we were kids. And I'm going, oh my gosh, this guy doesn't know Freddie Prinze had passed away.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So it was like, so the cops come and they ran interference and said, hey, just keep walking to your dressing room. And so they came in, the cops came over and said, we got to tell you, if anything happens here, we can't do anything. So you just need to steer clear of everybody and make sure. He goes, but you're going to get some weird stuff happening here. So I was like stunned that they didn't know he had passed away. So while we were there, we had a scene in like a bodega, right? It's called the little store thing they called in New York. And we were running out of time. We had like 5 minutes to shoot and get out. And so we had one take to do this one scene. And the director, Bert told me, you got one shot. Good or not good, this is it, because we got to get out of here. We got to get this done. So the girl we're doing the scene with, he tells her, listen, we got to fumble or anything. Do what you need to do. Just don't stop, because we can't do anything. We got one shot. So I remember we're doing the scene, and she's supposed to be my girlfriend. We're doing a scene, and it's going really good, right? But I could see everybody in my peripheral vision, the crew and everybody. And so we're doing the scene, and they forgot there was a payphone inside the store. So we're doing the scene, and the phone rings, right? And I can see her, she can see me, and I see her eyes open like, oh my gosh, right? And I'm looking. And so I said, all right, I gotta do something. So I said, hey, the phone's ringing. Aren't you gonna answer it? And she went like, what the heck? Because that's not even anywhere in the script, right? And I go, forget it. I grab her and I kiss her.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so they said, cut. Everybody cheered. It was so funny. And it's in there. It's in the show.
Wow. So that's just improv right there.
Right.
So
wait, you asked me if I ever did drugs before, and I told you I grew up and never did drugs, or Bob asked me. I've never did drugs before, never smoked weed, and never did cocaine, never did any of those things. We had a scene in the Freddie Prinze story called Can You Hear the Laughter? We had a scene where I had to smoke weed, and where I had to do
like
coke.
Physically do it?
Yeah, yeah, but it wasn't weed, it was tobacco.
Fake.
It was
okay.
Tobacco in there. Okay, so here's the thing. So I have makeup on, right? So I have a joint in my mouth. So I'm supposed to light the joint, right? So you light it and you do this, right? So I light it, don't know what I'm doing. So I put my head forward and bring it in like this. I'm doing this, right? So the flame hits the joint thing, but the flame hits my makeup, right? My eyelids go on fire, right? So they're like burning my eyelids, right? Like I'm going, what? They're hurting, right? And I could see people going like this in the background, right? And I'm going, what the heck? So we're going to the scene, and they say, cut. And people run and start doing this to my eyelashes, because my eyelashes were on fire. My nose was black because the flame turned. It was so crazy. Wait, and then we had to do a coke scene, right? So I don't know what to do with this stuff, right? So we have baking soda. So I'm supposed to put it on here, right? And snort it, right? So they had to tell me what to do. So we're doing the scene, right? And so there's powder still in my hands, right? So I don't know, you're supposed to go like this and put it on your gums. So I did that, and all the crew members were like, no, don't. Like, because that's a lot of money. You don't
dust it off.
Yeah, you don't dust it off. Didn't know any of that stuff. Had to learn those things. So that's my extent of doing drugs.
Wow. So Hollywood's going well. You're in your early 20s now.
Yes.
So I know everybody has, when did Hollywood turn bad for you?
Well, the crazy thing is, it was always a known fact that there's a lot of things going on that weren't right. But you're kind of oblivious to it when you enjoy the people around you, what you're doing, and you're not trying to go anywhere deeper. As you go into the deeper things, you see a lot. Like I knew a lot of, I knew of a lot of people who were taking advantage of other people. They weren't young adults; they were older people, but they were doing things to get promoted. That was common. One thing that I'll say about Hollywood when I was in it, you could know things about people, but it was a very enclosed society. You could not tell anybody. If you did, you got blackballed. So you could know a lot of things about people and what they were doing, but you couldn't say anything. Because if you did, you get blackballed and things like that. So it's different than it is today. But there's a lot of famous stars that people really like that were not straight, but people thought they were. There was people who were really strung out doing drugs, really bad, and people didn't know it. It never got out there, but people would come high to work and things like that, and it was not a good thing. I saw some things I didn't know, about witchcraft and stuff like that in the industry till I got saved, and God showed me flashbacks of their animal sacrifices that were going on and stuff like that were happening. There's a lot of witchcraft, a lot of things like that. AIDS was prevalent. A lot of people had it. It's crazy. It was very well hidden. To the outside world, but not to everybody inside.
So when you say it was hidden so people didn't necessarily view it on the camera, but it was something that was maybe a ritual, something they did before they went in and filmed. Was it hidden in that mannerism, like in the dressing room, or was it?
Oh no! Like you could walk out. I would walk on a sound stage, and there would be a jar of cocaine with a gun on it. It was out there, right? This is, I guess, what they would say a house. You can buy a house with all the coke that was there. I went to a party once, and I thought, I'm not going to do this again, because there was just things of coke everywhere and things going on, and I thought, this is not what I want to get involved in. I don't want to be a part of that.
So you were not saved, but you weren't part of the system.
Yeah. I wasn't saved, but I didn't. It's just, if you went someplace, even before you got born again, there's things that you still know. It felt like the Spirit was still in operation, and I wouldn't want to touch those things, right?
Yeah. So basically, what I hear you saying is, the Spirit of God kept me in the midst of an atmosphere that was inviting me.
Yeah.
And that's really the love of God. That's the power of God.
And like I have a lot of people always tell me, you're in the industry. I want to get in this industry. I want to do this. I'm saying, I don't know if you really want to do that. At least not the way it was. It wasn't a pretty sight for a lot of people that were coming in. I was real fortunate. As I look back on it, very fortunate. And then, later on, I hear people I know, I hear their horror stories. I go, wow, thank God that didn't happen to me. Thank God that didn't happen to me. But I think God's hand was on me, even in the midst of everything. Because there's a lot of places I could have went to or went in a bad route, so to speak, but didn't. And I'm grateful for that.
Wow. So your Hollywood experience, how many years were you in Hollywood?
Oh my gosh, I was in since I was like three till about 30.
And so what happened at 30?
So
So you got almost 3 decades involved in Hollywood, the glitz, the glamour. You went from a place of being unknown to known to recognized, signing autographs on magazines, part of, a hit TV, icon show, The White Shadow. Yeah. You've now played this role as Freddie Prinze. And so when did it turn left for you?
So as the White Shadow ended and I wasn't on there anymore, I started thinking, what do I really want to do? Is this where I want to go? Is this where I want the rest of my life to be? Because I enjoyed what I was doing, but I didn't know if that's what I wanted to do. When I was on the White Shadow, we had an opportunity, and I always wanted to direct, and they gave us all an opportunity, everybody on the show, to direct. I didn't think I was ready, and I didn't think I was mature enough to do it, so I didn't. We had a couple guys did, and they're doing it till today. Had I did that, I think it would have rerouted my Christianity about me getting saved and going down a road. I think it would have delayed it, maybe taking me off to a different path. But there's something, it's hard to explain, but there's something inside you that, like a homing beacon, witness that tells you, hey, there's something else for you. And I didn't know what it was. I couldn't put my finger on it. I just knew that this path wasn't going to be for me, ultimately. I thought that I seen some things that I didn't care for, but you see that in everything. But people would sell each other out for things. I couldn't deal with that. But there was something inside of me. I don't know what it was. I mean, now I know, but back then I didn't know what it was, telling me there's something else for me. I didn't know what it was. And I knew I was going to have to start looking at something else, but I didn't know what to do because that's all I know my whole life. So what do? I don't know. And was thinking, okay, I got to transition. Then I met Linda, and she invited, her sister invited me to a prayer meeting. I go and get saved and realize, okay, I want this. I don't want the industry. I need this. And started going down the road of Christianity, reading the Word. I was so addicted to the Word. I used to have to read the Word all the time. It was like hours. I'd sit there and read and devour it because Linda had been a Christian a lot longer, and she was backslidden and comes back to the Lord. So she knows a lot about Scripture, a lot about things I didn't. So in order to understand everything, I had to read the Word, right? And so I just got addicted to it, listening to tapes, going to meetings, everything, listening to everybody, and kept praying, God, just teach me to do the right thing. Teach me to hear the right thing. And got so excited about it and loved it and wanted to do that. Didn't know what I always thought, hey, man, God, give me money. Let me finance the kingdom. Let me do something like that. I was excited to be a Christian, couldn't wait to tell everybody. I was doing celebrity events and doing basketball celebrity events, and I got a witness, so I get a T-shirt and put all these scriptures on it everywhere, right? And so we had uniforms, but I put that underneath. But when we were changing, and everybody would see it, right? And I get up there and I tell everybody about Christ. I didn't care. We had a bench. I go, hey, I got to tell everybody. I got everybody around there. They thought I was going to tell them something about basketball. I got up. Just want you all to know I got saved. I serve Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior from all these actors. I just let it out. Just let it go.
You became a Romans 1:16.
Yep.
For I'm not ashamed of the gospel. And you just began to spread light in the midst of a dark place, believing that you might win some witness to others, that you might sow a seed, God would send someone else to water, and God himself bring the increase. Phenomenal. So how did Hollywood come to an end for you?
So I just one day said, that's it. I'm going to do something. I told Linda, we're going to get married. I need to provide. I'm going to do something for you, and it's not going to be in that industry. And so 180, boom. Just said, okay, so I got to find something now, right? And I went to go work for a guy selling wholesale hardware.
Right? You were a Tim Taylor?
So did not know anything about it, right? went in there and the guy said, okay, he was a friend of a friend and said, okay, I'm going to hire you. So he said, here's a list of customers. This is going to be your customer base. And anything you bring in, you get a percentage of or whatever. This is way back in the day. And I said, okay. So I went out there. So there was a big customer they had that they lost. And he said, okay, he goes, there's a customer. Go see if you can get this guy back to be a customer, and then he'll be your customer. I said, okay. So I went over and I was praying, asked God, you got to give me favor with this guy. So this guy's going, I don't want nothing to do with the company. I don't like the owner. He's a liar. He's this whole thing, you know. And so I was telling him, well, you're not going to deal with him. You're going to deal with me. I said, let's try this. Just give me a little bit of an order. And if it doesn't work out the way that I'm saying, then you don't have to do anything anymore, right? So he said, fair. He goes, I like you. I'll do that. So he gives us an order. So I'm thinking it's going to be a little order, but his company's huge. So he gives me a good order. So I go, and the guy, how in the heck did you do this? We're talking. I told him, I said, hey, this is what I promised. He goes, okay. So when it came time for my check, he didn't give me any of the commission. So I asked him, and he said, no, that was a house account. I said, no, you told me to go get it. It would be my account. So I was talking to another friend of mine who knew him and said, listen, I won't do you like that. If you want, come and work for me, you know? And I said, okay. So I went to go pray about it. And the Lord told me, go ahead, go there, because that guy's going to go bankrupt. The guy who stole from me. So I went in, I said, okay, I'll come to work for you. And I told him, I said, I let you know up front, I'm a Christian. I'm not hiding it. And to let you know that I am a Christian, the guy I was working for, your friend, he's going to go bankrupt, right? And he just went, okay, yeah, like, okay, whatever. So I go work for this guy. About 2 months later, he calls me in the office. He said, come here, right? Because he was one of the guy's customers. He said, come here. He opens an envelope, slides it over to me, he goes, read that. So I read it, and he's announcing he's going bankrupt, right? And then the owner of the company that hired me looks at me and goes, I'd have never thought that would have happened. He goes, but I remember you told me, that's why I'm showing you this, right? And so I went to go work for this guy and learned about sales, put me under a guy who mentored me. And I think mentors are really important, biblically and in business. And so he mentored me. I started selling a lot. And so it was so powerful working there, learning so many things that I didn't realize how good of a salesman I was. When they told me that it takes 7 years to sell $1 million worth of recurring business, I did it in 1 year. Right? And they were stunned. I was stunned because they were going, we never seen that happen before. We don't even know how that happened.
God's favor, God's grace. You walked out of one industry, came into another, and he began to bless your hand, make you fruitful. Wow. And so from that, you and Pastor Lynn, you guys have a tremendous story of God's promised child in your life. Most people have no idea. And one day we're going to have Pastor Linda come and share her story. I almost did it. We're going to have Pastor Linda come and share her story from her side. But I really believe that you can really minister to a lot of people on disappointment, on heartache, holding on to God's promise. I know your story of what it is to receive a prophetic word, hold on to it until you see it manifest. And so I want, if you would, just share with me, you know, the power of holding on to a prophetic promise, especially when it came to your daughter.
Yeah, so I think a lot of credit has to go to my wife because we lost 12 babies. We had 9 miscarriages. We did in vitro once. That's where we had 3 babies. We lost all 3 of them. We had her without it, my daughter. It was probably one of the most difficult things we ever went through. And they are constantly saying that when people have miscarriages, that they, leads down a road of a divorce and things. And for me, that was never an issue. For my wife, it wasn't. But I can understand why, because of the pain, the disappointment, how the enemy would get in. But I think knowing that we had a word, people would tell my wife, you need to stop. That's just too many. And she goes, nope, I'm not stopping. She goes, God said I was going to have a kid. I'm going to have a kid. And she hung on to that. And she kept saying no. And as much pain as we were going through, and I think people don't realize who've never had a miscarriage before, it's not just the physical things like my wife's body had to go through, but the mental part for the wife and for the husband. When I remember when we were pregnant once, and one of the first times, if not even the first time we had a miscarriage, it was so nightmarish that the doctor told us we were going to miscarry, and my wife was miscarrying. I used to hear in my head, the voice saying, "Daddy, help me! Daddy, help me! Daddy, help
God.
me!" And that was so hard, and that torture to hear that was hard, hard for me, hard for her. But it's a constant where when people lose a child, I'm not saying this in any way to make it slight or easy, but they can go to a grave and see a child. My wife would say, I have to go to a toilet, 'cause that's where she miscarried. And one time very severely where she should have been dead. I remember she was miscarrying and bleeding and had to call 911, and she was almost ash in her color. They had to come, they rushed her to the hospital. They put her in a room, and I remember all the nurses and everybody was running around, and they were going like they lost their heads. And what ended up happening was they were saying, "Hey, she's flatlining," because outside where we were at, there was a flat line. And the doctor gets there, she comes in, and she was awesome. She walked in there, and I'm at the door where my wife is, and people are running around. She goes, "Stop it. Everybody just stop it." And she goes, "She's flatlining." She goes, "She's not flatlining." She goes, "You have the machine hooked up to the wrong person, the wrong bed." And after she goes, "Just shut up. Everybody out." She threw everybody out. And she tells Linda in the midst of it, "Honey, just look at me. I got you. Everybody get out." She's yelling at everybody going, she goes, "You guys are a joke. Just get out of the room." And then she goes, "Honey, don't worry. We're going to take care of this." I mean, really calm to Linda yelling at everybody else, right? And when it was all said and done, she took care of her. I love this lady. She was awesome with my wife. We went through all of that. We get home, and I remember before the miscarriage happened, I was driving to get my wife something to eat, and we already were told we were going to miscarry. I'm driving, and I remember driving to get food. I didn't know if my wife was going to eat, but I wanted her to have something. I hear in my spirit the Lord say, "I will have mercy on whom I choose to have mercy." And then I said, "How could you say that to me? I've served you with everything I have, and you're saying this to me?" I was angry. I mean, I was cussing God out. I was so angry.
Right there, most people would be like, "You're in sin." But you know what? He's our Father. We could talk to him real and sincere, and I can see why,
And
I'll
he
be
knows what we're thinking.
right. And so you're just letting it out.
Oh, yeah. And so I come back. The miscarriage happens. We went through what I just told you. The doctor comes out and says to me, "Your wife, with all the blood she lost, should have been dead. But she's not," right? He said, he goes, "I would keep her here, but I'm afraid with all the stuff that's going on, they're going to miss something." He said, she gave us her home number, her work number, every number she could. She said, "If anything changes, just give me a call, but I'm going to send her home to get her away from this mess." We're going home. I take her home. I hear God say to me, "See," because I understood at that point, he meant he was going to have mercy on her, right? Because she should have been dead. but he showed mercy. That's why he says, I'm going to have mercy on whom I'm have mercy. And the Lord said, you misinterpreted what I said because you heard it out of ears of anger. You were so angry, you didn't hear it. You heard it in the way you were feeling, not the way I said it. And I went, wow. And
Let's just take a moment right there. You're broken in heart, fractured in mind, disappointed beyond all belief, and God is still trying to speak mercy. You're feeling there's no mercy on me. And then you find out your wife could have and should have no longer existed, but he loved you so much, he kept her. There's so many people that begin to interpret life out of a broken lens. And so in that very moment, what happened brought your sight back and gave you clarity? Just speak to that just for a moment.
It was a wake-up call for me to understand that you can't hear God out of what you're going through or what you're thinking, because you'll taint it with what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And if you have to put your emotions in it, don't move prophetically, because it's going to be your emotions, it's going to be how you feel. And it was a lesson for me to understand that God's speaking to me, but I'm hearing him through my lens of anger and making him angry. And I think a lot of times when we minister to people, we take what we interpret in our anger and put it on God and say, God's angry about this, God's mad about that. And we miss that God's gracious and God's merciful and God's loving and God's kind. Even when we're angry, he's still loving. And so we project that on other people, and that's not God.
It's a Moses. Moses, God tells him to strike the rock. He strikes it twice out of anger. And then the Lord rebukes him. That's not the message I'm conveying. And there's so many people that like to throw the stone because I'm angry, God's angry. Therefore, when I talk to you, I'm talking to you from an angry experience and an existence.
Yeah, that's why I think, especially in the prophetic, we want to use our emotions or how we feel and make it about, and then taint it and say, okay, here's what God's saying, and saying in the anger that we have or in the joy we have or whatever it is, rather than just delivering the message. Instead of just being the mailman, we have to be the author, of the letter. And we can't be, because we didn't author the letter. We didn't author the word.
So here we are. You're in this season where you're believing God for a promise, you and your wife. He's been merciful. I remember part of this testimony that your wife shared with me that was a real turning point before God sent you your promised child of baby Zoe. And it was, she was tired of hearing everybody, well, one day you'll be a mom. One day you'll be a mom. One day you'll be a mom. She was a mother. Her babies just weren't coming to fruition here in the earth, but she has, each and every one of them are in the heavens. And you bought her a gesture of her motherhood. She told me about a ring that you went and got her, and it had specifically how many stones?
So we had 12. We have 12. We had 9 miscarriages, 12 babies we lost. So they had 12. I learned that from her, though.
Okay.
So here's when I remember we sat down one day, and she said, we need to name the babies, all of them. We need to name the babies. So we took part of our day and just named all our babies that we had lost. We named every one of them. And
you can't just gloss that. So did you just take a moment and pray? Did you pick your favorite names? How did you go about that process?
So Linda's very prophetic. So we were and we're talking about names, and we brought up every baby and what we felt that God was showing us about that baby. And then we try to name them appropriately according to what he showed us, and names that we had, and then names that were meaningful to us, like her dad's name, my dad's name, my mom's name, her mom's name. So we had that, and we started to name the kids. And I'll never forget this. We were in church, and it was Father's Day. And they had these books they were handing out for all the fathers. And we were standing, and they were handing them out, and they said, "Fathers, come on up and get in line." So all the fathers were there, and I could see my wife. She's like, you know her. She's just stirring. You could see the stirring in her, right? And then she goes, "No." I just heard her say, "No." She walked right up to them. She grabbed the book out of one of the people's hands. It's like, "Here, you're a father. You may not have a kid on earth, but you're a father. You have them in heaven." And she gave me the book, right? And said, "No." And then she goes, "And when we go home today," she said this. So she goes, "When we go home today," and we had like 5 miscarriages at that point. She goes, "When we go home today, we're going to go buy a stereo with 5 speakers on it. It's going to be from the babies to you." And because I wanted one, and she wanted one. So we went and did that as a gift from the kids to me. And so she was the catalyst in bringing the attention to that. So when we went through this whole thing, and we finally had Zoe, and we had a miscarriage after her, I decided we have to do something that would be with her. And so we got a ring and 12 stones on it for her and the babies. And I learned a lot going through it, her tenacity, her strength, because people would always tell her she had to quit, she had to give. She goes, "No, I'm having a baby." And they go, "Well, your age is this, and you're not." And she goes, "I'm having a baby." And so we went to go through the process. Then she started miscarrying. Not miscarrying, she started bleeding. So we had to take her to the hospital when we had her with Zoe. We go to the hospital, and the doctor says, "Oh my gosh, we got to do this cerclage." She says, "The baby's coming out." So we had to do an emergency cerclage. They had to sew her up, and we went into the emergency room, and he said to her, we're in the room. He said, "I never had a cerclage this big done before, and the baby survived." And after I said, "Doc," he was Jewish, but I didn't know he was Messianic Jew till after. I said, "Just grab hands with us." And we grabbed hands, and I began to pray. And I mean, it was gut groaning prayer, and I just started crying out to God. And we finished praying. He looked at me, and he looked right at me. He said, he said, "This baby's going to live. I believe that." He goes,
Come on.
"I got to tell you, I'm a Messianic Jew."
Huh.
He said, "But I have never heard anybody come in a room like this and pray like you did." He said to me, "You're going to have this baby." He goes, "I just performed one right before on another baby," right? So we go to the hospital. After they put her in the hospital, the lady who went before my wife a couple hours before her cerclage, her bag burst and the baby died. And so the nurses were crying in the hallway and stuff like that. And I thought they were crying for the baby, right? But they were crying for my wife because they heard her story, and they saw what happened with that baby, and the baby was caught earlier than my wife, and they were crying and go, "She can't lose this baby, all the stuff she's been through." So they were crying. So we didn't know that, why they were crying outside. I thought they were crying for that baby, and I'm sure part of it was, but they had told us, because of what was happening to my wife, that we couldn't lose the baby. So my wife calls me. This is my wife. She goes, "Go get every baby magazine you can get," right? So I go, "Okay." So I went all these baby magazines. I come in hospital with the baby magazine. She goes, "Let's cut out all the baby pictures and everything like that." She goes, "Get some scotch tape. Let's put them on the room." So she put all these pictures of healthy
Prophetic
babies.
declaration, act of faith.
Yeah, put it all on there. She goes, "I'm watching these babies. Every day I get up, I'm going to see a healthy baby, a healthy baby." So she kept saying that, right? And then you got to know about my wife. She's bold. So she went up there, and then she talked to the nurse. She goes, "Who's in these rooms next to me?" And they go, "This person has this person has that has that," and stuff like that. She goes, give me a list of the rooms. So the girl goes, okay, so you put it down and everything. My wife gets the phone, starts calling them in the rooms and starts praying for them, right? She starts praying for them. Bam, everybody. She started praying healing, deliverance, whatever they needed. She started praying for them, believing that whatever a man sows, that's what they're going to reap, right? And I always tell people this, when we pray for people, we have to be careful how we pray for them, because sometimes we go, okay, I'm going to pray. Oh, God bless them. May you have that. I said, you have to be careful, because whatever you sow, you're going to reap. You may be going through something that's horrific to you, and you're praying for yourself. Oh, praying loud and hard. But God's going to hear it the way you pray for somebody else. He's not going to hear he's going to hear oh, God, help them, bless them. Right? That's why I say when you pray for somebody else, pray with everything you have, because that's the way God's going to hear your prayer.
You're 100% right. I tell people often, I said, let's pray for this individual like it's your son, your daughter, your mother, your father. Let's pray with intention. Let's pray with fervency. I personally get hundreds of emails, hundreds of prayer requests on a weekly. And, sometimes they get into my DM, I get text messages, emails, I get them in all these different forms. And sometimes I'm like, God, I don't want to pray, being honest. I don't. And the Lord will say, remember, it's not about you. Yep. And then I'll have to change my heart and then look at that one or interpret that dream like, okay, I got to put all of me into it. I got to let the Christ come out. And you know what? Even to this day, he'll still give me that conviction. I can't just say I'm going to pray for someone and go, okay, Lord, bless them in Jesus' name. I literally have to turn my face towards the text, turn my heart towards the person, the individual, to pray. That's exactly what your wife did. She began to turn her heart towards those that had need, because she understood, if I pray for their need, God will barak. He'll turn around, and vice versa. The way I've done it unto others, he'll do it unto me. And my God, he brings about a great testimony.
Yeah, so our doctor goes, he says, I have to go for a week away, but I'll be back, and I'm going to put somebody else in charge of you for a moment. Okay. I go, okay. So he gets this guy, he comes in, and then he starts telling my wife, well, because Linda's believing to go full term. And he was telling her, there's no way you can go full term. Linda goes, yeah, I'm going to go full term, right? And the guy says, you can't. That's impossible. And he said, you will probably deliver early. And she goes, full term's 38 weeks to 40 weeks. I will deliver my baby between 38 and 40 weeks. That's just the way it's going to be. And then he said, well, I'm the doctor. I'm the expert on this. I know that's not going to happen. And my wife goes, you can get the hell out of my room right now, because it's going to happen. And get out. And I don't want you to come back to my room. And he goes, but I have to, no, you don't have to do anything with me. I don't want you, get out. So she throws him out. He walks out the door, and the nurses go like that to my wife. He's an idiot. He's an idiot. Going like that, right? So the 38th week, then it goes over to them and says, this is week 38. Tell him, letting you know, I serve a God who's a good God, who's the God of the impossible. And it's 38 weeks, and I have my baby on the 39th week. That's when we had Zoe.
Wow. You know what it just reminds me of?
Full term.
Full term. What it reminds me of is, you tell a prophetic person what they can't do when they're truly a prophet, truly a prophetic mandate on their life. You basically make them say, just watch me now. That's exactly what manifested in Pastor Linda's heart. She's just like, oh no, you're not making, and if you my God, I can't wait to bring her here and let her share from her side, the power and the testimony. But I'm telling you, this woman is, I would say, a pit bull on a pork chop. You're not going to take something that she believes in away from her.
Oh, no way.
She's going to fight for it. She's the woman you want in your corner praying. God really blessed you.
Oh, yeah.
Here you are, this teen idol, and God gave you a woman of God that's full of faith, fire, and power, anointing, grace, sovereignty.
I tell people all the time, if you're going through anything, you want her in your corner, because she's not going to relent. She's going to pray. If you're going to, like her mom, if her mom told you, I'm going to pray for you, I'm in agreement with you, her mom would pray until it manifested. It manifested 2 or 3 years later. She would pray with the same fervency she started day one till it manifests 3 years later. She was like that. That's the way Linda is. Linda will do the same thing she'll pray and pray and pray. And she doesn't know, Linda does not know how to pray just like, hey, let's pray casual prayer. Hey, God bless you. She doesn't know that. It's full force, everything, because she believes God's going to do it. We went to go see someone in the hospital the other day. We were praying, her and I, and we walk into this hospital and went to go visit this young lady. And the people in the room, they leave. We're there, right? And we're talking to her, and I told her what I saw and what my wife saw, and we were praying over there. Hey, we see this happening, right? All of a sudden, she's going, this is wild. She goes, I've never had this before. She goes, I'm seeing visions, right? She says, I'm seeing visions, right? And she goes, oh my gosh, I'm hearing voices. She goes, you're speaking, and I'm hearing yes, 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 right? And then Linda says something. She goes, I hear yes to that too, yes. And she goes, there's nobody here. She goes, I don't have anything in my ears. My phone's off, everything. She goes, this is wild. She goes, I've never started seeing vision and hearing voices. Right. So, it was powerful when I believe when you saturate yourself with the presence of God and doing what God wants to do and hit the vein that God has for you, you carry it. It's on you. And it transfers over into an atmosphere.
Well, Romans chapter 12, verse 3, God has given us or dealt us all a measure of faith. That word measure is a metron. That faith measure in our life can be increased. Faith comes by hearing the word of God, and that's what happens. The measure, is an anointing that God deals to everyone. He gives and grants. And what our duty is to grow in that measure, to understand what he's anointed us for. That's why it's so important to discover purpose and destiny. My goodness, your story, there's so much. But I also would love to have you elaborate. I would like to say you're a Dodger fan, but I know you're not. I'm not. I grew
You're a
up
Giant
here.
fan.
I'm a Giants fan. And so we grew up with this saying here. And this is a crazy thing. I'm a Raiders fan and a Giant fan. I know you're an avid sport fan. I'm a Raider fan, a Giant fan, and a Warrior fan. And what happened is, the Raiders break my heart. They moved to LA. Then I moved to Orange County and they moved back to Oakland. And then I moved back to Merced and now they're in Las Vegas. And so, for me, I'm no longer just I'm a Raider fan. I'm not, I don't claim Vegas. That's just me. I'm just a Raider fan. And, I understand that early in your year, you have a testimony. And I think this is really, just how do I want to say this? This is the unfolding of many great things that God's going to do in your life. But many times people don't understand that adversity is what leads to the greatest of victories. We see in 1 Samuel 30, David went through adversity. He lost his wives, his children, all of his spoil. His city is burned with fire. He's in this difficult season. Men are going to stone him. And then all of a sudden, he's coming back and God's granting him victory because it turned in prayer. You obviously had a family of prayer, with your father, had these prophetic premonitions, these wisdoms and understanding. But before all of this wonderful testimonies and move of God in your life, you experienced a disappointment in the realm of the family. Can you elaborate a little bit about this?
Absolutely. In 1959, May 9th, the Los Angeles Dodgers were coming to Los Angeles. There was a place called Chavez Ravine, and it was made up of three neighborhoods, Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. My family lived there in Palo Verde. And everybody's heard of the story, maybe not everybody, but the Dodgers and the city of LA had families removed physically from there to build Dodger Stadium. That was my family. So what I did, I wrote a script. because I was in Hollywood. I wrote a script really quick, not great or anything, but just to get down all the ideas of what my grandmother had told me about the story. And then I interviewed some of my aunts and cousins and stuff like that to get the story even more. But I used to sit down with my grandmother and my mom and ask them about what happened. So a lot of stuff that happens, or they say in some of the reports you see, aren't the way they went down. So I wrote that script just to get all the ideas down and what took place, just to put it in form. But in 1949, there was it was called the Federal Redevelopment Act, I believe, of 1949, where my grandparents, myself, I was 9 months old, but not 1949 when we got displaced from Chavez Ravine. But 1949, my grandmother, my grandfather were there, my aunts. But they came in the Federal Redevelopment Act. They had bought Chavez Ravine from the city of LA. So they went in and did estimates on people's houses and stuff like that, and told them that they were building this redevelopment. They were going to have housing for people. They were going to build parks, churches, supermarkets, stuff like that. And they were going to do this all in Chavez Ravine area. And then they realized people were going, well, you're going to kick us out of here. And they go, no, we're going to pay you for your house. I think it was like $10,540, something in that range, to move out. And then if you want to, you have first chance to come back. And we're going to redevelop this place. So what ended up happening, people started taking the money. My grandparents weren't taking the money. They didn't want to move. They weren't going to leave. So what ended up happening is that development never happened. So at that time, the mayors changed. Mayor Polson took over as mayor. And he decided that if anybody was going to use that place, it was going to have to be used for public use and public use only. So there was a few families still left back then. Kenneth Hahn, I think he was a councilman at the time. He became a supervisor, but we didn't have, in LA, didn't have a big league team of any sort, basketball, football, baseball, nothing. So they wanted to bring somebody in. So they were 1956, something like that, they started seeing if they could lure somebody over. So they went to the Dodgers. 1956, 57, they went in. They brought O'Malley in, put him in a plane, and he goes over the area looking at it and goes, oh, I don't want this place. Look at all the hills, too hilly. So he walked away from it and said, I don't want to do this. But little do people know this part. Back in about 55, Disneyland was looking for a place to be built. In the 50s, not 55, but in the 50s, looking for a place to be built. They looked at Chavez Ravine to build Disneyland there, but they said no, it didn't work out. But they came back to offer people there an opportunity to invest in Disneyland. Now, this is crazy, right? So they're looking for a $2,000 or $3,000 investment into Disneyland. So they come to my parents, and my mom and dad thought about it, and they did not do it, right? Could you imagine if they did it, right? So then years later, when they built Disneyland, they came back and said to the same thing. And they came to my mom and dad again and said, hey, we're going to build a hotel if you want to invest in that. And my parents didn't do it. Could you imagine if they would have did that? Anyway, going back to it, so O'Malley rejects it. They went back and tried to get something done. They go back and they said, listen, we'll level it for you. We'll use bonds and everything. We'll level it for you if you come back. So he came back, take a look at it, and they make this deal. There's an issue, though. The issue is it's supposed to be for public use only. Well, that's private use. They have a private owner. So they built up a whole plan, and then they put a zoo in the plan, which is the LA Zoo now, but for public use. But in doing that, they clear all this area for it. But they're putting the zoo here. So they have this whole thing. They come back and they offer my parents and my grandma, they offer them $10,540 for the property. So there's 3 houses on this lot. My grandfather had it reassessed like a year earlier, and it was $17,000. It was worth $17,000. So my grandfather's going, "You offered me $10,000. The reassessment of it is $17,000." And they go, "No, we're going to offer you $10,000, and we're gonna do public eminent domain on it, and we're going to take the property." Well, I didn't know this till later on, that down in towards the beach area, Manhattan Beach, there was a black family that had eminent domain done on, and they threw them off the property. Little did I know when I did a thing for PBS that somebody told me, "Oh yeah, they did one in Pittsburgh on a black family, right? And removed them and took property from them eminent domain. Now they're doing it to you guys, and we're Hispanic, right? So I don't know if you see a little pattern going on there, but they did that to us. So they told my parents, either you take the money and walk away, or we're taking it anyways through eminent domain." So my family was the first Hispanics to sue City Hall, LA City Hall. So we went into lawsuit with them. Now, my grandparents had some sympathy from people because of what was taking place. But then the Dodgers got all these celebrities to put on a big old show and say, "Hey, everybody wants baseball. If you don't want baseball here, it's because you're just a hater. You don't want baseball." And people came out, like Ronald Reagan came out, and they had all these celebrities come out and do a thing. Well, in the midst of all that taking place, we were suing them. My grandfather, for his kids, would buy them each a house by laying down a down payment. Then the kids would have to maintain it, right? So in order to do that, you had to put the name in the person who put the down payment down. So my aunts and uncles had homes that my grandfather had put down payments for. So with them coming in about a week before they actually came in and took possession of the land, my dad took a whole week off because he thought they're going to come try to displace us. So my dad took a whole week off. They didn't come. The day my dad went back to work, that's when they came. So they brought TV crews, came. They had tractors and everything, and they bulldozed our house. Okay, so what they did was, for a show, they went in and they put out some mattresses and a couple boxes, like they were pulling it out. They filmed that, took pictures of that. Then they stopped. All the stuff's still in there. All the rest of our stuff's still in there. And they bulldoze it, right? Now, the city and everybody says, "Now, that's not what happened." Yeah, that's what happened. They bulldozed the whole house, everything, all our properties, right? Bulldozed it. Our families came up. My grandmother, grandfather, they say, we're not moving. Just because you bulldozed our house, they put a tent up and camped there. There was a guy in a construction company, and he lent us his construction trailer. It's a little one. We have pictures of it. And we're in there. I mean, we lived there for a few weeks while we're going through this court battle with them. So we're out there. So people would come by and visit us. We got people that hated on us, but we had people that came to support us. A man by the name of Baxter Ward, who was a TV reporter on Channel 5 KTLA way back in the day, was supporting my grandmother and grandfather in their efforts of what they did. He was like for them, saying what the city's doing is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. Anyway, so we go to court, the whole thing. And in the midst of that, they bring out like, "Hey, this is how they said it. They're not these poor little Mexicans. They're rich. He owns 5 houses or 7 houses, because my grandfather had title on the title of his name because he gave it to his kids and they had to pay it off." So with that, they turned the case over and said that we had no case, threw it out, and we had to get out and vacate the whole thing. But they took everything, right? Then they made a statement, "Well, we put the money in your account. Your grandparents took it," and that's not what happened. My grandparents, so they never got a penny for it, not one penny. And the city was saying they did. They didn't get a penny, and they're lying about it. And so there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of intricacies that I haven't shared yet in the stories, because everybody writes books on it, or tries to write books on it, but they never have because my grandmother passed away and my grandfather, so they don't have the insights of the truth that happened. I do, right? And so I'm holding on to it because I don't know what I'll do with it. But people write these books and they're good and everything, but they don't tell the whole story, right? But it was painful. I remember I was 12 years old. My grandmother had passed away after my grandfather, and my grandfather had a big funeral. But I was shocked that when my grandmother passed away, how many people came out. So when they started, they had 3 cops. You know, when they do it, so they normally have just 2 cops there. They had 3 or 4 cops for my grandmother. And then while they're having the service, it was packed. I mean, people couldn't sit out. I mean, there was a lot of people outside. And so by the time we started, there was like 9 to 12 cops out there to help do it. So when we moved the casket from the funeral home to the cemetery, so the cops were relaying to the cops in front where we were at. We can hear them. They were talking about, we're still getting on the on-ramp. We were getting off on the off-ramp where we were going. So the cars were so long. The people, even the one cop said, I've done funerals for dignitaries and I haven't seen this many people ever before. But all these people came out because they made an article, my grandmother, about Dodger Stadium, the whole thing. All these people came out of nowhere. And it was really funny because I felt really proud that my grandmother did something and my grandfather did something that nobody else did. They were the first ones to fight City Hall and believed in principle they were right. And the ironic thing of it is, so where we lived in Malvina, and I'm the youngest living survivor of that incident. I was nine months old when that happened. They got me, put me in a police car. My mom came out, took me out. I mean, my sisters, they put us in my sisters in police car and me. My mom opened the door, took us out. So there's pictures I sent you guys and you'll see them. But in all of that, they built Dodger Stadium. Here's where we lived. They built Dodger Stadium over here. And I know people like to say this, even my cousins, I say, they built Dodger Stadium, home plate on our home. That's not what happened. We were over here. They could have left it alone. They would have been fine. And they could have built it over here, but they didn't. They took us all down, and they didn't do anything with the property that we actually lived on. So.
Wow. So with everything that has happened in your life, if you could sum up from being ripped out of a home at 9, going into Hollywood, experiencing great success, recognizing this is not the life, the turn, then going through the heartache of losing children after children, to having a promise, to now, who is Ira today? As we get ready to bring this to an end, I think everybody needs to understand who you are.
Well, I would say this, at 9 months, to be one of the first things that you experienced is to be thrown out of your house. At 9 months old, to go on through life, to being in the industry, living what people call a dream, or what their dream would be, starring in a movie and starring in a series and being on these magazines, becoming a Christian, meeting my wife, getting, becoming a salesman, getting in ministry. I think if you ever look at a trail of your life, everything is preparing you for what God has for you. He'll use it all for his glory. There's nothing that he will not use for his glory and to make you a minister. I tell people all this time, we went through a horrific time in our miscarriages, but I wouldn't trade that for anything, only because it made me the minister I am today. It made my wife the minister she is today. It made us understand what compassion was about, rather than just throwing scriptures. It's easy when you've never been through anything to tell anybody, here's a scripture to live this. But when you've gone through it, you understand the compassion part to everything. And, you start off in a place of disarray, and it just reflects my life of being unsaved. All the turmoil, tragedy, the heartache, the working at things, to come into the place of rest, resting in who God is, resting in the finished work of Christ, not striving to be anything, not trying to make a name for myself, not trying to be great at anything, just trying to be the man of God God called me to be, and resting in the fact that he made me who I am. And I am a son of God. And I can rest in the fact that I will never lose my salvation. I will not lose my sonship because God loves me. He has me in his hand. And no matter what comes in my life, God has me. And we did a Bible study on Genesis chapter 1 a couple weeks ago. And I asked my daughter, after seeing everything we talked about, what would you call this? If this was a sermon, what would you call it? And my daughter says, chill, bro, I got this. and I think that's what it comes down to. Just relax. God's got this. And we learn to rest in what God's done. We're going to be good.
100%. I love your daughter, Zoe. She was my youngest prophetic student back in the day. And now seeing her flourish, the prophetic is alive and well in her. She's a gift of God. Your family is amazing. Wow. Thank you for sharing your story. I think there's so many people that need to hear what it means to overcome adversity. When you read the stories like Joseph in the Bible, and we see that God's hand was on him and favored him all that he did, we often look at it and go, yeah, my story don't compare. But the truth is, I don't think we ever take enough time to really look at the full story of what we've been through to come to the place we're at.
Absolutely.
Thank you for helping us see, a full spectrum. The good, the bad, the uglies, the highs, the lows, the ins and out. I think today what people really need is the understanding of a man or a woman's reality. The Word of God says that God will take that in which the devil meant for evil and he'll turn it for our good.
Absolutely. It's funny. People always think that God is building a building, but in reality, God's always building people. And he's always building you. No matter what happens, you're the most important thing to him. And so everything you go through life, God's building you. Everything's a building block in your life. Everything, good, bad, or indifferent. And when we learn that, we realize at the end of the day, like God said in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Nobody else did. It was just God. Everything is in his hands. Trust him, and you're going to come out smelling like a rose. No matter what happens, he's got you. He's got you.
Chill, bro.
He's got you.
I got you. Well, thank you so much for taking this time, sharing what God has done in your life. If you can, just share a moment, the name of your church, where you're located, and how people can find you, maybe on social media or something, because they relate to your story.
Kingdom Covenant Orange County, Kingdom Covenant OC is our church. We are found on Facebook and on Instagram. Facebook, we are Kingdom Covenant Church. You can look us up, Kingdom Covenant OC, I'm sorry. Look us up there. You can find us there. You can find me at One Kingdom Pastor on Instagram and on X. You can find Kingdom Covenant OC on Instagram. But yeah, currently we're in Irvine, but we're moving to Mission Viejo and in a couple weeks. So you get an opportunity to come out and visit us. We're going to have Prophet Rob come out and minister there. Miss Juanita is going to be ministering to our women. But you can look at our stuff on social media, and we'll have it there. It'll all be up when all those things are happening. But we're moving a lot of things around, changing some things, and looking forward to meeting all of you out there. Come out and say hello. I'd love to have you and be able to minister to you. You come on out. Be blessed.